questions. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot to give because things are in progress, and a lot of the design aspects of the vehicle are done. Testing's done. Basically, working on ease of assembly. Simple little things like 2 bolts in the side of the battery cover that we designed in. Those don't need to be there because if you want to get the battery cover off, you have to take both seats out to get the bolts out. So unfortunately, it's a couple of those little tiny deals. Now that does not mean we're going to have a delay. That just means we're not going to put bolts in those 2 positions, so that if you have to jump your car, it's literally 2 Allen bolts out, pull the cover off, and you get in there and work on it. But Show 104, I know a lot of people are sending out stuff. What are we going to talk about in Show 104? Let's go ahead and clear up a couple things. No, we do not have CARB yet. We are still waiting on CARB, and we don't have that certificate yet. We do have our EPA certificate, which means we can bring vehicles into the country as a manufacturer. We can sell them in all states but California, I believe. So that process is happening, and we couldn't have anything coming into the country in regards to engines prior to having that EPA certificate, which we talked about, I think, 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, Scott says.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
So it's been 2 weeks, and process is happening. So, this was a drift video of Daniel and myself a while ago. Today's presentation, we'll talk about events. We have been at quite a few events lately. We did Sand Sports, we did Off-Road Expo, we did Arizona Off-Road Expo, and we went to Sand Hollow last weekend. I know everybody's wanting us to invade Camp Razor this weekend, but to be honest, we have so much documentation stuff we have to do. We will be in Charlotte working this weekend, getting some of our documentation ready so that when we deliver cars to customers, there's manuals and information sheets and how to do a lot of the aspects of the vehicle. That's probably what better way of saying it. So our time is better spent here than being at Camp Razor this weekend, which I'd love to go there and invade Camp Razor, but the right thing for us to do is make sure we are buttoned up and ready when cars are delivered to customers. Sand Hollow was a good trip. We did Thursday and Friday at Sand Hollow, and then I left on very, very early Saturday morning to go to Max's race at Laughlin, which was a very successful race for us on Saturday. Sunday was not what we wanted, but we know what not to do. And the failure we had again came down to electric power steering. I know everybody keeps saying, well, why can't you fix it? I guess I got to tell Max to slow down. That's probably the easiest way for us to fix it. But he started, I think he was the 13th car to start on Saturday, and he was the 3rd car to the finish line. Again, only 2 unlimited cars beat him to the finish line on Saturday. And Sunday was leading the race, had a commanding lead again, and we broke another U-joint, which is very disappointing because now we broke Super ATV U-joints, Sweet U-joints, and Articat U-joints, which all steer to the steering, connect the power assist to the rack. Speed UTV doesn't have that. We have a full hydraulic rack. Let me go grab one of those for you. Kind of explain this just a little bit more.
You keep talking about it.
Step in for a second. Take off.
We just got a few more videos here from out at UTV Takeover, Sand Hollow. Looks like they went down to the Torkerville Trail again. We did that last year. That was a lot of fun. But this year, just running around with a couple more cars. So hopefully those of you customers who are out there got to see it and enjoy it. And I don't know if they did ride-alongs, but everybody who's had a chance to ride in it has definitely loved it. And we can't wait to get all of you and yours.
All right, so I walked out. I should have been a little better prepared here, but this is the steering rack that we make at Speed SXX. This is a Articat replacement steering rack. It looks very nice little billet part. But with this rack, all the feedback goes through the U-joint. So all the feedback in the steering, hitting bumps, hitting berms. We're breaking it in the berms is what's happening. The ruts get deep and he rails down through there and it gives a little bit of feedback and twists the shaft and opens up the two splays. Over here is a Speed UTV rack, which when you look at the two racks compared to each other, it's like, oh my God, that one's a lot bigger. Not only is it bigger, it has a hydraulic ram here. It has a hydraulic ram that absorbs the shock going through here. So this one not only has this section in the top, it has the full hydraulic ram in the bottom. And the ram takes up the load and the feedback so that there's no load on the U-joint. All trophy trucks, Ultra 4s, King of the Hammers, all have a steering rack like this. Speed UTV, proper steering rack. So another disappointing weekend for Max. This is the fourth race that electric steering has taken him out of the leading the race position. Happened at the Mint 400. We said we'd fix it and make it better. And we made it better and it broke again. So
we just haven't spent the time to put this rack on his car.
Well, we can't without hooking up an electric. There's no real room to get a hydraulic power steering pump on there. You know, I've looked at it and just the way the Yamaha is with the serpentine belt or not serpentine belt, the V belt for the alternator, there's just not a lot of room to get a hydraulic pump onto the Yamaha. And if we did, it probably wouldn't be legal at Best Desert or Score because the car didn't come with that type of steering. There's some pretty cool videos there dancing through the G-outs. Really worked good, and that was fun. What else we got? This is Sand Hollow, some Sand Hollow videos. And as you see, the UTV works a lot like a trophy truck. It drops off into a big G-out, doesn't bottom out, it has good bump control in the shocks, bottom out control. And I had fun. I had fun at Sand Hollow. The people were great. UTV Takeover was an excellent event. And the reason we left on Saturday morning is they said we were going to have 50-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday, which they did. And I had Max racing. So between those two things, I was out of there early Saturday morning. Customer calls. I think this is a make-believe off this phone I got from a customer a while ago. But I know the talk has Robby's been calling customers. The answer is yes, I have. I had a certain group of customers that I actually had to call based on them having ordered their car at Sand Sports and having California phone numbers and had to make sure that either they were going to wait their position in line for CARB or if they had a residence in Arizona. A lot of people have a river house or a lake house or a cabin up in the mountains in Montana. So I would say about 70% of those people had residence that they own that they could receive their car at their second home. And that's what a lot of them chose to do. But then I have customers that want to wait and want to register in California, which to each his own. But for us as a manufacturer, we cannot deliver or sell a car to California until we have our CARB certificate, and we're not going to do it. Also had to call some of those customers that had purchased cars through Coin because obviously Coin being a dealership, he cannot sell a car in California without CARB as well. So there's a bit of a process with that. I'm going to let Jeff come in because a lot of you guys have not really seen Jeff up on the screen, but he's another one of our engineers that's been on the project from the beginning. He worked hand in hand with us on the body designs, the body shapes. And I'm going to let him talk about plastic molding. I know a lot of you are going to say, when's the day I'm getting my car? I don't care about plastic molding. But then there's a whole bunch of you guys that still like to hear about what we do in engineering. And right now, I don't have updates for you of when you're going to get your specific car. I know when the first 100 guys are going to start receiving their cars. I don't know when the guys after that. So Jeff, go ahead and take over for a minute.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Jeff, and I've been working with the Speed UTV team and Robby for the last two years. And my primary role has been on the body modeling, the surface architecture, the internal and external plastics on the UTVs, And so again, today we're just showing you some more of the behind the scenes on the engineering that doesn't quite get the same level of fame or same level of presentation, because it's the tools that are designed to make the parts that everybody sees at the end of the day. And so this is one of my favorite pictures of all of our slides today. And you can see here on the left, it's one of our gigantic molds. That mold stands taller than Daniel at 7 feet by 7 feet and is about 3 feet deep. And so it's a full chunk of steel that's cut out to make our plastic molds for the actual rear quarter panels you can see here. The rear fenders kind of are integrated into that component, but essentially what you see here is a tool that weighs almost 6,000 pounds just out of pure metal. And these tools are then clamped together with a force of 500 to 1,000 tons, depending on the actual injection molding pressure. And some of the shot pressure can range from about 12,000 psi, which is about 80 megapascals, and its cycle times in about 2 to 3 seconds. So that's what we can actually use to make sure that our part manufacturing processes reach those really quick turnaround times to get us as many parts as we possibly can. And so if we go to the next slide here, again, this is for all the engineering, kind of the guys who like the information about how parts are made. The injection molding process here is really complex, and it has a lot of levels and layers to it that a lot of people just don't understand from a general viewing audience. And so here we have a lot of pictures. At the very top here we have an A side of our door panel, and then we have the B side of our door panel. And so here you can really see the complexity of all the intricate sort of design features that go into not only the styling of the vehicle, but also the support structures, ribbing, and rigidity reinforcement elements. And so the actual molding process on the right there is the molds are clamped together with that high clamping force. Screw plunger feeds the plastic pellets that are then melted to form shots. And those individual shots are the specific volume required to fill the entire cavity. Those shots are injected into the cavity, again in about a 1 second, 2 second process. And then those plastics solidify in the channels, creating the part, which is then cooled by liquids that's pumped throughout the tools to then make sure that the part has a uniform thickness and uniform cooling temperature. Then the A and B sides are unclamped. The part is ejected using ejector pins, and then finally the process repeats. And so this 2 to 3 second process, again, is what's really critical about us being able to manufacture hundreds to thousands of parts in an efficient time. Obviously, lots of advantages of injection molding. Why are we doing injection molding over stamped aluminum? Detail feature capabilities. When you do injection molded part, you can get so much more detail and get so much more complex geometry to reinforce targeted areas in your actual design. So when you stamp a part, you're limited by how much that part can actually draw or how much that part can be deformed. With injection molding, your imagination is basically the limit. If we go on to the next slide here, this is again a really awesome slide that not a lot of people get to see because it's behind the scenes, and it's something that we're working on every day to refine, to improve, and to make sure that we're getting the best possible quality parts out to the customers. So here's the actual designing process, and it shows you sort of, again, the behind the scenes of going from A surface. That's coming up with Robby, creating the stylized designs, making it look good, making it look fast, making it look speedy. But then there's also the B side, where it's all the things that people don't ever get to see because it's the support structure behind the actual design. Then every part has 2 halves. That means 2 molds have to be designed just for one part. And the A side, we have weld lines, sink marks, and plastic texturing that all come and play a factor into how that design evolves. Then we have the B side, which is where all the reinforcement, mounting, and locating features comes into play. And that's much more of the back end of the actual design. Here on the right, we see an animation of what is illustrating a mold flow simulation. So that's number 4 here, is a mold flow simulation. And so we run these as engineers to determine where our sprues, which is where the initial injection starts, where our sprue is located, where our gates and runners are then also located, to make sure that we have the best even distribution of the material throughout the actual tool itself. And so here, this part, for example, this is our windshield that some of you guys have ordered. This was a simulation that we ran previously, and it takes about 2.3 seconds to fill up the full mold. Then just to finally touch off here before passing it back off to Robby, the tools are machined in that process after the mold flow simulations are conducted. Small batches are made to adjust the heating and cooling. And then to give you guys where we are now, 7, is when medium batches run for repeatability. And so this is where we are, where we're dialing in a lot of the features. And Dan's got a cool example here that he can help kind of show out. Is one of our parts that's kind of gone past our medium batch run for repeatability. And this part's really interesting because it also incorporates a lot of our texturization within the plastic injection molding process. And so a lot of the components you'll see will have either a carbon fiber finish or a dimple sort of finish. And that's something that's also incorporated into the tool. And it's really cool because sometimes you can look at a plastic part, and if there's certain areas that have been etched or cut out and don't maintain the same uniform patterning, that's somewhere we've had to change the tool. And so it's really interesting to see momentarily throughout our small batches that are made for the injection molding process. You can see where tools are actually changed because the texturing changes between 2 different grains to show you where we are in terms of actually finishing the engineering design. Now, for the final large batch mass manufacturing part, all those little weld lines or all those little change lines in the actual features will be completely gone, and it'll be a uniform, high A surface quality finish part for all the customers, really. But yeah, so again, just to iterate, this is a really long process that doesn't really get a lot of the show. It's not as exciting every single day to show it off, but from an engineering standpoint, it's really exciting to work on and to improve the design of our parts and to get them into your guys' hands. And so with that, I'll pass it back off to Robby here, and I think he'll talk about some more of the manufacturing.
Cool. I'll take over part of that again. So as you see over here, parts are piling up. I think that's there's more and more parts that continue to get made at all times, and that's because there's thousands of cars that are ordered and thousands of cars that have to be produced. These are some latest production harnesses. This is something that Jason's really proud of, and it's probably best to let Jason pop up and talk about what our final harnesses came out to be. And I will go grab you one and bring it in as you start to talk.
Sure, you want to grab an engine harness?
I'll grab an engine harness and a chassis harness.
And I have an ECU harness here.
Mic me? Okay. Thank you, sir. Cool. Thank you. Cool. Thank you.
An engine harness.
Cool. So here I have, it might be kind of hard to see with this here, but this is an engine harness.
We did not tell him he was going on tonight, so
no,
he was
I'm
not prepared.
Not prepared at all. And this is what we call an ECU harness. And this is actually one of the cool features about the harness in our vehicle is not only does it use, and I know we've talked about this before, but we use these nice bulkhead connectors, which are super easy to get on and off the car. So it makes, working on the car very easy.
Well, it makes it also easy if you want to do inspections or you got to take your engine out.
Yep.
You don't have to disconnect every plug on the whole engine.
Exactly.
It's done just like you do like on a trophy truck or an Indy car or an F1 car.
Right.
It's got an engine harness. It has a ECU harness. It has a chassis harness. Has a front wiring harness and a rear wiring harness.
Yes, all the sections. Yeah, I got a lot of different sections. You can see them on the screen there. I don't need to repeat all that for you, but
stand back so I can zoom
you're going to zoom in on it. But what's interesting, and this is a cool feature, is like Robby was mentioning, we have all this racing inspired technology in our vehicles, not just in the construction and the type of connectors we use, but also in the implementation. And what I mean is, this is a great example, is this. We made this section of the harness so small so that it can be changed. And part of our brand is racing, of course. So we'll offer, kits to convert your car into a race car. And part of that is we make another version of this harness section that's compatible with an aftermarket ECU that is unlocked and able to be tuned. So all you have to do is get this small section, aftermarket, that's compatible with the aftermarket ECU, and swap that in your car. It's a very easy thing to do. Yeah.
So this is exactly for racing purposes only is what we're talking about there.
Yeah. So it's just one of the cool little trick features that we've pre-built into our cars for customers who are interested in doing that kind of thing. And we have these bulkheads as well and various other sections of the harness, like the bumper, and the rear section of the harness. So let's say you get in a fender bender and you damage your harness as well. You don't have to rip the whole harness out of the car, and you don't have to pay for an entire harness either. So it makes the working on the car a lot quicker, a lot easier, and ultimately reduces costs for everybody. So there's a lot of cool things about this harness that are unique specifically to Speed UTV. And I've only touched on a few of them, but yeah.
Right,
Thank you.
Done?
Yeah, I'm done.
That's it?
What else
That's
do you
all
want
you're
to know?
giving me?
What else do
All
you want
right,
to know?
so let me go ahead and step in here.
I'll
take
leave
back
these
over
here.
on this a little bit because I think there's a pretty cool feature that Jason might have missed just a little bit. This section and this section actually go through the rear firewall, and the rear firewall on the Speed UTV is basically sealed. So all of you that have had buggies and other forms, you realize there's a low pressure area under the back of the car, and it normally sucks all kinds of dust up under the engine, through the trans tunnel, and onto the people in the back seats. By some of the experience I've had over the years, I wanted to have something that was sealed. So these are bulkhead connectors that go through the rear firewall as well. And there's just a small little hole where the drive shaft is. And I've got a plan for sealing that thing up with a better, tighter seal there as well. But we've really focused on blocking that whole rear firewall off from dust coming from the backside up in. Hopefully, for people that have ridden in the back seats before, this will make that experience a lot more comfortable. So not only is it done with race spec bulkhead connectors, and this harness stays on the engine when you pull the engine out, which makes for performance racing a little bit easier to do that job as well. And these are things that we really haven't shown before, and maybe in one of these future shows, especially once we get cars, we'll explain how this works. And there is new customers that have joined us that are not part of the original group, like my loyal guys that started at Sand Sports. Manufacturing. This is a photo that last time I was over at the factory. I don't think some of these got shown, but here is just piles and piles of gearboxes. I read these comments that these cars aren't real and they're not coming. Well, why do I need all those parts if I'm not building cars? I think our true customers know what's really going on. Gearbox assembly, just very high detailed parts in these builds all the way through. When you look over here and you look at the gear sections of the transmission, this is a project that we worked on with. We started with Ron Weddle, and he referred us over to our guys over at Albans over in Australia, and they do a wonderful job on gearboxes, and they helped us do a gearbox for the Speed UTV, and the gearbox, knock on wood, has been pretty bulletproof. Very happy with what we've seen so far. I know a lot of people saw this picture, but I don't know how many people have actually seen that picture over there. Is my camera in a good position, Scott? Or am I over there? You want to zoom into that? This is obviously in the factory, and this is carts that hold 4 engines at a time. You got to remember, we're building hundreds of engines, not 1 engine, 2 engines, 3 engines. This is hundreds, and right there you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 16 engines just sitting on that rack right there. And not only is there an engine, it's got the gearbox and the turbo and everything connected. And as you see, it has a wiring harness. You can see the wiring harness drape up at the top there. But Jason did a really good job. He worked with the guys over at James Lynn Wiring and learned a lot from them for about 3 months working on this process. And the wiring harness on this car looks like a hot rod. It looks like something you would, take pride in, and something that these guys do on their 56s and stuff. And yes, it has the production style plastic over the top, but the way the splits on the junctions and where they Y out, is all done, like you would see over at James Flynn. There's another picture of the engines in the engine shop. This is from the other side, and this shows where the accessory drives are. Shows the open side of the turbo on the exhaust, but it shows how this whole package is very similar to what you would see at an Indy car, F1 car, not even a Class 1 car. This is more IndyCar, F1, GTP style than most off-road stuff. This is inside the factory when I was there, and there's a lot of really cool detailed pictures, and this is part of the assembly line. This is obviously months ago, but it gives you guys a real insight to understand we're not building this at our Charlotte, North Carolina shop. This is happening in a real production factory. Losing my voice again now. Mike Shannon asked, will axle fit in the crescent box? And as you see right here, the axle does fit in the crescent box. We do have to rotate the 1CV a bit, but it does fit in there. And there is plastic dividers in there as well. And when the lid's closed, if you notched your plastic divider where you had the axle, it would actually hold your axle down in the box as well.